I meant, okay, start the meeting, not okay, as a Democrat. So, but just so that, all of the state, requires that all of our boards are comprised of what they call minority representation, minority party representation. So, for a board of 6, you can have no more than 4 of one party. You could do 3 and 3, you could do 4 and 2. So, or if there's unaffiliated, you can mix that up a little bit, but, so I think that was the reason it was asked. Yeah. And a lot of people accuse me of doing all Rs all the time. So anyways, are we on and live? We're recording. Okay. Let me call this regular meeting of the Board of Finance to order. Today is Tuesday, August 19th, 2025. We are participating all in person in City Hall Auditorium. For the record, I have Board of Finance member Deb Iannacito, Lorene Pesky, Wendy Traub, and Caitlin Hall. Before we get into the agenda, could we kindly stand and pledge the flag? Okay, so, sorry, the wheels aren't cooperating with me. Item number 1, I'll entertain a motion to open the meeting to the public.
So moved.
Of which there is none.
Second.
Thank you. Motion made by Mrs. Traub, seconded by Mrs. Pesky. All in favor?
Aye.
And because we have nobody in the audience, we're going to move right into item 2. I'll entertain a motion to accept the regular meeting minutes from June 17th, 2025.
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Traub.
You guys got to do it because I was eating.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Iannacito. Questions or comments on the minutes? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Or abstention?
One abstention.
An abstention for the record for Mrs. Pesky. Hold on. Which one or two?
You can bring it up on the screen too.
So you know how to do that. I don't know how to do that.
You can just bring it up.
I could bring it up here. You girls are all tech savvy. I know, right? I'm too busy looking at all the seats. Yeah.
I don't want to see results.
I know.
This is something I never learned.
All right, so I apologize. Item 3, I'll entertain a motion to approve the budget transfer requests for fiscal year 24-25 as further described in the Manager of Budget's letter dated July 2nd, 2025. The City Council did already approve this on July 7th, 2025. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Iannacito. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Pesky. So motion made and seconded. Are there questions?
Are you worried about any of these that we're close on anything?
I worried.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. Sorry.
No.
No, I'm not worried about any of these. Most of these actually, the social worker salary, we are transferring from the opioid settlement funds into the revenue to offset that salary. The internal service fund, that's just our regular funding, the HSA payments. The anti-blight fines, we're taking that out of the anti-blight fund and we're transferring that into the revenue to offset the blight enforcement officer's salary. And then for capital reserve, we are taking the wages that we get from the NIPS revenue
Yes.
and transferring that. So this is all basically kind of offsetting some of those salaries.
I thought the NIPS was quite a bit of money. What the city has received from.
It is, but we only transfer a portion of
Portion of it.
what the MSW coordinator salary is. So that's why there's only 39,000 being transferred.
But it's the totals that had been listed was that it was, I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, I don't
But
have
my-
the exact
when-
total. I want to, it's around 165,000. Yeah.
Was it that high? Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I did it for
for the NIP.
Linda a couple weeks ago.
Well,
Yeah.
My son said it would be higher if it wasn't so expensive to
Buy
get,
a nip
to
bottle?
buy it. Yeah.
So I know there's only Eleanor's iPad on for customers tonight, but for Caitlin's edification, so you hear us refer to NIP revenues. What happened is the state of Connecticut adopted legislation that provided that any alcohol beverage distributor would be responsible for paying a recycling fee for the little nip bottles. You know, the larger bottles, it's a little bit easier. The onus is on the consumer to get it to recycle. But these nip bottles, you know, they're thrown along the side of the highway, the side of the roads. They end up in our catch basins. They clog up our water systems, drainage systems. So when the state adopted this, those NIP revenues are paid to the state, and then the state grants the funds back to the municipalities.
Okay.
So that is what Mrs. Pesky is referring to. And I know in the first year, I was surprised when it was somewhere around 70,000, but I guess I didn't pay attention. It's 165. So what we do with that is we agreed that we needed a recycling coordinator. She works in the Department of Public Works Division. And she has been working very hard to find other ways for us to do diversionary efforts on solid waste and recyclables. And then the rest of the funds go into a capital reserve, and those are supposed to be used for programs that will reduce solid waste.
Okay.
So probably time, I don't know how you feel about it, probably time for us to get a report on what that capital reserve is and what those programs would be. So,
Because they're effective, and she started new things. So
Yes.
I'd like other people to know about that too.
yes, yeah, I agree. All right, other questions for Erica on the, her memo or the transfers? All right, hearing none, I'll call that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, so item 4, and I'm going to take this in the two parts. For A, I will entertain a motion by the board to, actually, this is just to receive an update, and I'll do it for discussion purposes, an update on the status of the capital reserve, including funds earmarked for facility improvements. Do I have a motion to open the floor for that report?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Traub,
Second.
and second by Ms. Inesito. And Erica, is this you I'm turning it over to? Okay.
So after a lot of work, we have capital reserve reconciled. It's reconciled through June 30th, 2025, which is that big spreadsheet that you have in front of you. When we were looking at capital reserve, for Caitlin's purposes also, what we do with capital reserve is when we build our operating budget every year, we earmark funds for capital projects. Those funds then get transferred out of the operating. They go into our capital reserve for long-term projects. So that's what this reconciliation is. When we were going through it, I met with Ray Drew, Chief Baldwin, Interim Chief Fire Chief Tripp, Jamie Sikora, and we kind of looked at these funds that have been earmarked, and we now have a facilities director. So what we would like to do is truly capture what is being expensed on our city real estate, our city-owned buildings, what improvements have to be made on that. Prior, they were always put into the actual department, so you'll see like fire headquarters boiler, PD maintenance, they were earmarked in those actual departments. We would like to create just like we have in the operating budget, a city real estate facilities capital reserve account. So with that, now that everything is reconciled and we have better numbers, we would like the Board of Finance to authorize us to be able to go through and move some of these funds. And I can go through the funds that we are looking to move and to create a city real estate facilities line item. Does that make sense? Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
So the ones that we would like to move, I have to go down now. The animal control, that would be moved, those funds would be moved to a facilities line item. And again, these numbers that are on here, we may go through and kind of tweak some of those numbers. So once we have the approval and we do the work to set up the new accounts and move everything, I will also report back to the Board of Finance the final listing and what's in these accounts. For the fire department, we would move the headquarters and the North End Station boiler. We would move that to facilities. We would move the headquarters and North End Station, the generator funds into facilities. Headquarters and North End Station, the diesel exhaust. Where am I? The fire headquarters parking lot, North End parking lot, those would all go to facilities. The fire exterior building, headquarters and North End Station facilities, same thing with the interior for fire. And that's it for fire. Moving down to the PD, we would move the maintenance and repair upgrades to facilities. And moving to Southeast School. There is no Southeast School anymore. We would take those funds and move those into the facilities as well. City clerk's vault, we would put that into facilities. Those funds are earmarked for the doors I think it's actually because you guys have moved. Heather's given me that, like, we don't have one. It's a vault that we have in City Hall. So those funds are earmarked for if we ever have to replace that door. But those would be moved to facilities. The one for the CHH South Central parking lot, we would actually move that to the parking authority. It falls under their purview. There's really no point in having two different line items for that. And then under Public Works, we would move the Public Works roof. We would move that to facilities. We would keep that its own separate facilities for roof, and that is in case of, obviously, if any city building, something happened to a roof, we have those funds earmarked to be able to either repair, replace. And then it says Public Works facilities. This was kind of like a catch-all. So we would kind of reclass that. We would separate it out from Public Works and put that into an actual facilities. And the same thing with the Public Works salt shed. We would move that to the facilities, the roof. Those funds actually came from a FEMA reimbursement when, I guess, the roof got torn off of the salt shed many years ago. So that's what those funds are for. So that is our goal going forward with capital reserve.
So I'm going to try to close the loop. So it'll give you some direction on how to proceed. We've had this conversation a number of times, Erica, Olivia, and I, to talk about, and actually what precipitated that phone conversation or these multiple conversations is, I think, Mrs. Traub, you were saying, well, how much do we have in reserve? How much do we have? And are we discussing this enough in public? And so when Erica went in and they did the reconciliation, because it had been a while since the accounts had been reconciled, and then she reported to me that we had almost $9 million in capital reserve, that was sort of a little bit jarring to me that it was such a high amount. It's all been moved into capital reserve by actions taken by the Board of Finance over the past years. And I think that it makes sense not only to be able to provide a detailed report to the Board of Finance on where we stand with each one of these reserves, but what is the timeline for expending the funds out of the reserve? Our bond counsel highlighted to me at one point that, when you are collecting tax revenues from your taxpayers, there's a point of reasonableness. Will you reasonably spend these tax funds within a five-year period of time? And so that was another reason for this exercise. Let's look at this, let's not be trying to sink funds for something that's going to happen 10 years from now. Let's think about the 5-year plan and think about those emergency needs. When we talk about a roof, those almost always end up being an emergency. So I think the fact that Olivia and Erica were able to get through these reserve accounts, I know Ray Drew gave you a lot of insight as well, and reconcile them to the point where they feel comfortable giving this report to you. I think it does make sense for the board to give direction back. If you'd like to see these funds separated differently, reported back to the board differently, and then what's a reasonable expectation for reports back? Do you want to get those monthly? Do you want to get them quarterly? Do you want to get them? I would be disinclined to recommend that you go less than quarterly, but it's the board's pleasure, whatever your thoughts are.
I mean, I think on a quarterly basis, I think now that it's been reconciled, so thank you very much. Now that it's been reconciled, a quarterly, look at it will make it easier on everyone, because now you're not doing it a year later or 2 years later. And like I said, it keeps everything. I did have a question though. I was trying to do the numbers. What is the number down in the bottom right-hand corner of 2.8 million? I know it's the difference between the ending balance of 8.3 minus the 5.4. I can't figure out what that number means.
I think,
Because the 5 million is the total all public works, correct? The 5,489. Yeah.
I think it's the difference in the fund balance, but let me just double check.
If you take the 8,355 minus the 5,489 in public works, you come out with that 2,865. So I don't know what significance that has. If you have a formula in that cell, it'll definitely.
I know, really,
It'll
it did the math.
Right? It'll tell you.
Yes, that is, it's all of the previous fund balances above. That probably should have been dropped one cell down, so it was not printed on there. So then that gives you the total of all of the fund balances above, and then it gives you the 548 is the fund balance of Public Works. See?
Okay, but right. So what's the 2.8 million?
That's what that is. The 2.8, it shouldn't, that was basically like a verification thing.
Okay.
That should have been dropped below for our purposes.
Okay.
The 2.8 is
Okay, it's
nothing.
relevant.
Yeah, it shouldn't have
Perfect.
been printed on there.
That is fine. Perfect.
Era, I have a question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Please. No, I was going to ask if there were any more questions.
Oh, okay. What was your criteria for deciding which projects to move?
So basically anything that had to do with with the facilities, and any type of improvement on the facility. So obviously if the boiler goes at the fire headquarters, our facilities director oversees that now. So taking those funds and moving them into a facilities account kind of gives him more control over that. It allows him to track better also, what he has in capital reserve for improvements. So all of these that are being moved are improvements that would have been in a building. It's just taking those out of the actual departments and putting them into the facilities department.
All of them?
Yes,
You were just going through pointing out specific.
which ones we were going to move to facilities, yes. So like some of them are gonna, and they're all gonna stay in capital reserve. We're gonna kind of set it up like we have in our operating budget. We have a line item or a department for city real estate.
So, oh, okay, I understand. So they're still going to be in a capital reserve,
Yes.
but within the department itself, except those facility ones that you're talking about will be going to, okay.
Yes,
I
yeah.
got it.
So the
And-
next time you see this, there'll be a line item on here, you know, it'll be much more condensed. You won't see fire headquarters, boiler, generator. You'll see facilities, fire department, you'll see police facilities, what else was there? Facilities, roof. So it's just gonna kind of lump them all together and give Jamie better control over those funds. And it'll also, when he's doing his budget, give him more of an insight into what he has in his capital reserve.
And that's something we've always wanted
Yes.
to really, and we talked about doing it even with the school buildings and ranking, you know, what's really scary about city building versus the school building.
Right.
So in the beginning, when Erica was explaining for years, and a lot of these reserve accounts, obviously, when you still have a Southeast school still in here, you know, these were done decades ago, some of these. And it wasn't until the last 4 years, we actually established a facilities director, and the city real estate became his budget. So the lens that we were looking at this through was, let's pull out of the fire department capital reserves anything relative to the real estate. You know, it's windows, it's roof, it's walls, it's, you know, parking lots. And moving it into the real estate improvements. And Mrs. Pesky, I think that your comment was right on point. You know, it's so much easier to track the investments we're making in the taxpayers' assets when you actually have a dedicated line or a dedicated account. And I would agree the same would hold true for the schools. I know that Erica, Olivia and I were talking right before the meeting. And when we were describing or discussing, you know, what would this report look like and how frequently would the Board of Finance like to see it? We did say the exact same thing about the schools. You know, the capital reserve account for the schools, frequently from one administration to the next, they didn't know what they had in capital reserve. They were not reconciling their accounts. Donna Labby has come before the board a couple of times with various iterations of reconciliation and a request to move a lot of their funds so that they can access them for the middle school roof project. But we were thinking, if we establish this as a policy, that this report will be generated and reviewed by the Board of Finance on a quarterly basis, that we would apply that rule to both the city and the Board of Education. So there is very much clarity on where those funds are being sunk and where they're being spent. And I might even go so far as to recommend that you would include in that the non-lapsing educational fund, that new account that was created this past year, where they're able to move $1.5 million in with no statutory requirement to report back to the Board of Finance. The Board of Education has to make decisions. But I think that we would also want to loop that in as well, so that the report does come to the Board of Finance.
Especially if they had come to us with that big report about all their buildings.
Their yes, their
That-
facilities
City
assessment. Yeah.
Assessment.
Yep.
And Jamie's been doing the same thing with the city buildings. And when and if we should go to another referendum, for facility repair or upgrades or whatever, then you would be more able to see when we did that. Because people always say, well, why did we let it go so long? Well, maybe we won't let it go so long when we can rank and compare them better to one another.
Agreed.
Thank you.
All right, so I don't think it requires a motion, but if you want to, for the next meeting, prepare a transfer request. So you'll transfer out of those smaller capital reserves into the new account that you'll create. And then it shouldn't be a complicated policy, just a couple of lines, expectations for reporting.
Yes.
And I'm only saying that because my administration ends, I can say it with a smile, my administration ends on December 1st. I kind of feel like if the next administration knows this policy exists, it's easier for the financial team and the board to say, hey, wait a minute, we made a policy about this. So we're good?
So
Or
the
A?
first
That was just a,
A was no, nothing, but.
just a
this
presentation. Yep.
B is the vote.
let me call that motion. All right. So item 4B, I'll entertain a motion to authorize the finance department to reallocate funds already designated in capital reserve for facility improvements from individual department accounts to a centralized real estate account. And I'm going to add to this, and develop a policy for reporting capital reserve activity to the Board of Finance on a quarterly basis.
Should that also go to city council?
Yeah. Yes. The policy, probably not. But the report, yes.
Just so that, but so that they would understand where this came from.
Correct. Yeah. All right.
So maybe when, or at their next meeting, explain what we did tonight. And then, so,
Well, the transfers would go to the council. The physical transfers will go to the to the
oh,
council
it'll be
for
on
approval.
their
Right.
agenda anyways
Yes,
after
yeah.
us. Okay.
So the transfers, but the policy doesn't. That's going to be a
Oh,
Board of Finance policy. Yeah.
It's not going to be transfers. It's really just a reallocation
Allocation.
of the funds. So there won't be any money moving in or out of that account. I just wanted to make that clear. What's in there
Thank
is
you.
staying in there. Yeah.
So there will
Yep.
not be another capital reserve fund. It'll be all.
No,
They're just
it'll
going
all be
forward.
in there. It's just basically reallocating those funds from one department to another.
In a new line item.
Yes.
So moved.
There we
I'm trying to write what I said. Yeah. All right. So motion has been made by Ms. Pesky, seconded by Mrs. Straub. Are there any other questions or additional recommendations? All right. Well, then I'm going to call the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Moving on to item 5. I will entertain a motion. I'm assuming we're going to do, yeah, I'll call it just the way it's written. I'll entertain a motion to open the floor for discussion and potential vote on the accounting policies and procedures manual.
I'll move it.
Thank you, Mrs. Straub,
Second.
and seconded by Mrs. Pesky. All right. And Olivia, is this one you? Okay.
Yes, yes. So, so I know Heather sent out, it's probably like a month ago now, the policies and procedures, manual for you guys to review. It's pretty lengthy, manual. So, we didn't like print it out, but, yeah, so basically I was able to go through each area and just I just went in and updated. A lot of it was more just changes to like titles, some different job responsibilities, because we did add a couple of those new positions since this manual was last updated, and went in and just did all those kind of updates. So high level policies and procedures. It's not getting into like the nitty gritty of everything, but just the high level of it and internal controls and all those. So I don't know if anybody has any questions on any of them. It did include the capital assets, which we talked about, I think in June, specifically, and that change of that threshold from 1,000 to 10,000. So that's included in there as well. So
I was not here in June, so I'm going to ask this question. 1,000 to 10,000, that's okay with the auditors to increase it by that amount?
yes, yep, I did talk with them. They are okay. Actually, they agreed. They were like, yes, it should be it should be higher. It should not be 1,000. So they were very much in agreement with that.
Too bad they didn't suggest that to y'all sooner.
I know. So, yeah, so that was, yeah, so that was all good.
All right. Any questions? I know this is a lot of policy pages. But as you heard Olivia state, these are all existing policies
Yes.
with modest changes. Did you highlight the changes on each page?
I
thought there was a-
didn't.
yeah.
Well, yeah, when I made
I
it
just see
PDF.
Big one.
Highlight in
Yeah.
here, yeah.
Just that first.
The only one that's highlighted is that paragraph, just because I'm waiting to get the approval to then kind of update that. No, I could have done that. I should have.
When was the last time this was updated?
Yeah, so back in 2016.
Okay, it
Yeah.
was due.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'd like to read all 108
Yeah.
pages, but maybe I'll just keep it as a bookmark and
It's
refer back to
summer.
it.
Yes,
whenever we
yeah,
have questions.
Yeah. There was nothing crazy. Yeah, it just needed to be updated and yeah. Even just some things of like that were paper form that are now electronic, like, hey, we don't actually print that out and send that out to departments. We can just email it to them electronically, like just things like that. So.
It's amazing what you guys have found time
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah.
I mean, those two projects on these two last agenda item and this one, didn't take little time. That took a lot of time. Thank you.
Oh, this is tedious work,
Mhm.
but it's necessary.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, thank you.
All right, then I'm going to call for the potential vote to accept the modifications to the accounting policies and procedures manual.
So move.
Thank you, Ms. Anacito.
Second.
And second by Mrs. Straub. All right. Any other questions on the amendments? Hearing none, I'll call the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I feel like I have to close that first motion out. No? Okay, good. Thank you. Item 6, I will entertain a motion to approve the FY 25-26 budget adjustments to achieve adopted budget amount.
So move.
Thank you, Ms. Sandersito.
Second.
And seconded by Mrs. Traub. And discussion. Do you want to walk us through those or?
Some highlights.
Really?
Sure. The first one, city real estate, capital outlay. Now that we have capital reserved reconciled and we're moving those funds, that was a little bit easier to say, okay, we can shave that off a little bit. Again, public works, those are capital outlay accounts that our public works director so kindly gave up some funds. The purchasing department, we had some staffing changes, so we saved a little bit of money there. Same thing in the fire department. Pam Edwards retired, so that was a little bit of savings in salary as well. Capital reserve, again, in reconciling the capital reserve account, we realized we can shave the PPE funding down a little bit, so we reduced that to 35,000. We will be reducing the vehicle replacement down to a 600,000 funding. So we're shaving another $200,000 off. I don't know if you remember, but in the budget subcommittee, we started at $1 million. We realized we can only fund it at 800,000. Now we are funding it at 600,000. And that is with the kind of expectation that there really won't be any huge purchases being made this year. Recreation, the contract price for the portable toilets came in much lower than what it has been in previous years. The pension and benefits, those were, we had built in to finally fully restore the pension funds. What had happened is we then went to, okay, we'll half restore it. I think last fiscal year, we took that last restoration and we half restored that. And we were going to do the other half this year. But given the circumstances, we can't.
So not at all.
No, so
next
the
year-
restoration, the ARC, the annual required contribution is being made
Yeah.
100%.
Right, yeah.
It's just that when we cut that ARC was at 5 years ago, and we said, we'll make this cut And over the next 4 years, we will restore the cut 25% each year. It's that last, that's not 25%. I think it's 12 and
It's
a
like
half percent.
12.5, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
It's just it's filling back, but the arc has been met.
the tax collector, now that we had approved the mill rate and the grand list and all of that was settled, we realized that we could shave a little bit off of the tax collector's contract. Same thing with the adds and deletes for the lawful corrections. The thought process is any of those big cases that come up, they're going to take probably a year. So we were comfortable taking some funds out of there. We did cut contingency again. We put the contingent expense back to what it was budgeted in fiscal year '25. And we also are going to cut the management operations. The thought process on that also is there is funds in capital for those. And same thing with the citywide management operations. We cut another $10,000 out of there. And that got us to our final approved budget amount of $71,865,471.
I know.
It's a lot of work. Thank you.
Yes,
$5 million from
Yeah.
fund balance.
yes. Well, that 5 million of revenue these are just the expenses.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to go back and just further explain on the pension and benefits. For the board members that were here when we did make that cut 5 years ago, might have even been 6 years ago. The budget portfolio performance has outperformed what our expectations were. So I felt like this was not that urgent any longer because budget performance had outpaced the projections and the pension. And you've all been present for those presentations from Fiducient, where we should be, more than 67% funded for police and fire and over 80% funded on the city side. So I don't feel that these cuts would negatively impact the pensions. As you can see, when we're looking for $854,000 in cuts, we are nickel and diming this, and I've got to give credit where credit is due. Erica did, when she brings forward a proposed cut because the porta potty contract came in lower than we expected. She's really painstakingly looking for these. So I am grateful for the amount of work that the finance department puts into this. If there are no questions, then I'm going to call this motion that you have approved these budget adjustments. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, item 7, we'll do the city performance reports. I will entertain a motion to accept the city performance reports for fiscal year through June 30th, 2025 and July 31, 2025. So I'm looking to do one motion for both reports. Do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Thank you, Mrs. Trot.
Second.
Second by Ms. Iacino. All right, are there any questions on the performance activity?
I had a few things I figured we'd start with July, right? Well, from the get-go, let's see what's doing. And to be quite honest, I think my process was skimming through all of the different departments and just seeing if there were outliers. So the questions are coming from that. If it wasn't 7, 8, 9%, I'd say, well, what's going on? So, and I assume some of it I assume is because of the type of the year. I mean, seasonal, obviously, if you have seasonal workers and stuff, that account's going to be a lot higher because it's summer. But there were a couple things that stood out. Number one, I'm always concerned, police overtime is already at 13%. And that's for 1 month. If you divide it out, it really should be 8%. So I am concerned right from the get-go that we're already over on police overtime. I don't know if that's because of vacations and replacements for vacations. I made an assumption there. I don't know. What happened, and if you don't know this yet, that's fine. Do you know what happened with the building maintenance for the elderly? It's over $6,000 from what they budgeted. So I don't know if something happened very early on, July. I know.
In services for the elderly?
Yeah, I have account number 5245.
Yeah, I'm not showing it's over.
Am I in?
Budget budget minus year-to-date transaction shows $6,790.
I wonder if was I looking in revenue? No, there wouldn't be any revenue for that. That would have. to be
No.
expense.
Year-to-date, they only have encumbered 150 or about $160.
Oh, okay.
Maybe in city real
Oh,
estate.
under city real estate, I'm
Yep.
sorry.
That's what I'm,
Yeah, it says building maintenance, elder services, we budgeted 4,000. Year-to-date encumbrances are 10,000. So it hasn't been expended yet, but it has been encumbered.
yeah, I will look into that.
I mean, we're
More
not
than-
talking large dollar amounts. It's just, we're
Right.
already, July, if we already see some type of things happening. I had another one, the animal control overtime is already very high. And again, these are just things I think we need to look at, right? Because if the first month we're already that much over on our overtime, what's going to happen later? And it could just be seasonal.
Mhm.
So, those are things I was looking at.
Yeah, those
Um,
ones are hard to speak to only because, I mean, we don't know the staffing, like, we don't
Right.
know if somebody is out on workers' comp, so they have to
Exactly.
call other people in. That's the hard part of those overtime
Right.
funds.
And I'm just saying, I'm just keeping an eye on those
Yeah.
types of oddities for, also, and we might have talked about this during the budget season, I apologize if we don't. I think it's under police, park mobile fees.
Mm.
Is that a new line item?
No, so that one is, it's a little convoluted. We we basically take the money in and pay the money right back out. I mean,
Okay.
I do have in my office the explanation that Sergeant Baldus has given about that. And I'm happy to give that at the next meeting as well,
Okay.
of how that works. And I think that Park Mobile makes their money, I think, on the user fees. They get to keep the user fees. We keep the portion that we collect.
Capture revenue.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Was that one an anomaly? Is that what you noticed on that one?
Well, because there was no budget for it.
Oh,
So
Yep.
it's $9,000
out.
over budget because there was no budget line.
Right.
Right.
And then at the end of the year, it washes
It
itself
washes
out.
itself. out.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, no, so I'll just, again, there's just a couple more, there's, in Public Works, there's overtime again. So a lot of that is just overtime, and it could be because people are taking vacations during the summer, and therefore there's other people filling them. So I just wanted to note those. Also under recreation, and again, it's something you might not know now, communications other, I think there was no budget line item. For
No, there's no budget. That will be presented in the next one. What happened is when they were paying the internet bill,
Oh,
it's coming out of a line item it should not be coming out of.
okay.
So we will, when we do the budget amendments, we will move some money out of the line item it was budgeted under, just to kind of clean that up.
Okay.
So that'll fix itself in the September meeting when those budget amendments are approved.
Yeah, so again, I didn't expect any answers as far as
Yeah.
overtime. So I just wanted to let, people know that those were the things I was looking for, because you're only in month one. Look at those outliers at the beginning of the year, and they might even out as we go through, but obviously if they're a problem now, they might become more of a problem come December, and then we
Yeah.
really have to start looking at them, but thank you.
so to Mrs. Trapp's question though, I know that Police Chief Baldwin has identified a concern about his police overtime as well. So I think it would be beneficial if we did ask, he always does a report of the overtime, which officer received how many hours. Every month, he provides that report to the Board of Safety. But it might be helpful, to your point, for us to have him in early, have that conversation with him. As he continues to be short-staffed with significant vacancies. With some of the initiatives that he has presented as areas of priority, he knows that it's going to be a stressor on that overtime line item. And I did suggest to him when we met today that we prepare a report and get that before the boards, as early in the year as we can. I know over the years, his salary vacancy savings has almost always been able to be transferred over to cover that overtime. But it's not a practice we really want to continue. I think we really want to see the actuals and try to control those.
And the one question I had on the junior end, is that number at the bottom of the report, that 6 million, is that due to change, or is that our number?
You said the June report?
Our budget versus year-to-date shows 6.2 million. Am I looking at that right?
No, you are.
I'm
Okay.
scrolling. Hold on.
Page 66.
Oh, yes. Yes, the budget year to date, yes, the 6.7. We have updated that though. Some of the expenses and things like that, now that we're working on the closeout,
Okay.
those are kind of, I don't know how I want to say that. They're kind of correcting themselves.
Okay.
I have been working on projections for year end, but again, until we actually close out, which fingers crossed is tomorrow. They're just projections right now.
That's okay. And so what happens to these encumbrances for accounting, so that people know, what happens to these encumbrances once you close out the books? They come out of there, right? And they go in a reserve account?
Yep, so the
Okay.
encumbrances, the departments have been wonderful because we hound them just about every day, like, do you have an invoice for this? Are we keeping this in prior year reserve? So we really narrow those down
Okay.
and get a pretty accurate number. And then when we soft close, they go into the prior year reserve. It's kind of like a savings account for
Right.
the expenses from the prior fiscal year. So yeah, those will. I could tell you that 312, I think, is even already a little bit lower than when this report was run for the encumbrances.
And so we can go just again, for clarification, encumbrances are things that we have not received yet, but we already have the approved purchase order and everything on them, correct?
Right, yep.
Okay. And so where do the expenditures go when the product actually gets here? Do they go into this? They just go against the reserve account?
They go
don't
against
go
that
to
prior
next
year
year's
reserve.
Expenditures, right?
Right.
Okay.
You want to?
No, you said, yeah, they
Yeah.
just go in, they just get hit on the prior year reserve. So
Right.
they're basically expensed in fiscal year 25, still goes into prior year reserve. So then when we actually get the invoice or the goods or whatever, then we pay off of that. So it's not hitting 26.
And so that was my question. If there was an encumbrance for $1,000 for something, it
Mhm.
gets, that money gets put in the reserve. When we pay when it gets billed, over that $1,000 will show up in this year's reports, or no? No, 'cause it goes
in
against
fiscal
the
year
reserve.
25's report or 26?
Well, this year we're doing 26. It does not show up in 26. It
No.
goes- Okay, I wanted to clarify
Yep.
so that,
And we
What
also
does the-
only, we will only put general fund, POs in there and for prior year reserve. So all our other funds, they need to be closed out. We don't carry that over. It's
Right.
just, we don't do that.
Perfect.
So.
Thank you.
To Mrs. Traub's question, I know that we did have a kickoff meeting with the audit team and included the Board of Education in that kickoff, and that very conversation came up.
You did.
Yes, when you're, it was really more about the prepays and the encumbrances. And we're just trying to establish, those expectations so that there's clean accounting, what you order in FY '25, there's an invoice in it and it's just, in transit, is far different than we're going to prepay this contract for snow removal that's going to happen in January. So it was a good conversation. I think there were some points of clarification on both sides, particularly with regard to the $300,000 prepaid software contract. You saw that, yeah.
Yeah.
So, there's always, I don't want to say it's a loophole, but there's always an exception to that rule. So prepaying 3 years, get you a discounted rate over the 3 years is very different than prepaying 3 years just to spend the money. Yeah. Any other questions on the performance reports for either fiscal year 25 or year to date? I should say July 31st, 2025. If not, I'll call that question or the approval. All in favor?
Mayor, sorry if I
Yeah.
may, one comment. The Board of Ed also, that Department 46 on there, that's why you see that high 6 million. They technically, we're projecting that obviously they're gonna spend their full 78,722. But in the financials, in the monthly expenses,
Yeah.
it's only at the 74. So that's also that high, why it shows that high
Gotcha.
difference as well.
Thank you.
And we just haven't reconciled that yet because it is the year end and there's so much changing and entries changing. So it's really not worth our time to
Yeah, it's still
reconcile
early.
that until we, are closer, until they're closer to being done and then we can reconcile it.
And we say it's early, it's 90 days past, when that's really where you want to be. At 90 days past fiscal year end, you really want to have all of that finalized. You don't want to go much past that. And we have, not the city side, with the Board of Education, we have been waiting well beyond that 90 days. Again, with the kickoff, we made it clear, soft close, the hard close. When you go much longer than that, the audit gets delayed, so we really want to be able to work together with the Board of Education to meet those deadlines, meet those soft close dates, hard close dates, close out those encumbrances if they don't really need to be encumbered, or close them out and then open them in a new year if it's something that's going to actually happen in the next year. So,
So
Yeah.
I will hold off, but I do have a question on those reports when we get there.
Yeah.
That surrounds this.
okay, good. Then I'll wrap up the closeout of the item number 7. I'll call it again. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so item 8, I will entertain a motion to accept the Board of Education Budget Performance Report for current fiscal year through June 30th, 2025.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Sanacito.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Traub. And now we're open for questions.
There's July is in here too.
Yeah, it was in there.
All right, so, and the motion I called was only June 30th, 2025, sorry. Will you amend the motion to include July of 2025? Yep, thank you. And Mrs. Trapp? Thank you. All right, open to questions.
Okay. So we were talking about, I think that when you were talking about the software, there is a $300,000 expense in the month of June. That's technical services. It looked like it was encumbered in May. However, the one thing that I would like to know an answer to, and I don't know as if there's anybody that can answer this here, is on the June reports, the instructional supplies, there was $1 million transacted in the month of June. It wasn't encumbered. It didn't look like it was encumbered in May. So my question is what is it? Is it a capital item? I mean, it's $1 million. So what would it have been? And it's just a pretty high amount for 1 month and for it to be done, particularly in the month of June. So I think that's my basic question on the reports for the Board of Ed for the month of June.
I do see that they made a budget amendment for the
They
$1 million.
did. So there was a conscious movement to cover that from one line item to another. And the same thing with the, let me see, I think it's the same thing. Nope, not with that line item. There was another line item that they did move, license and warranty. So that could have been what you were talking about prior to, there was a $348,000 expense in the month of June. There was no encumbrance that would cover that from the prior month, and there was a conscious movement of the budget amendment to cover that. So those are the two things that I have questions on as to what did they purchase in the month of June, and could it have been a capital item? Could it have been something else?
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't
Right.
have that information.
Okay.
I think, and I appreciate that. Obviously, I highlighted that as well. So my first question, I always go back to accounting principles. Those are my standards. Are we doing things according to GAAP and things like that? When do you traditionally do a budget amendment? Was it necessary to do that or no? Was it necessary for them to actually do a budget amendment at this point?
I would say yes. It just gives a little bit more of transparency.
Okay.
Especially if you know that I have this really large surplus here and
Okay.
we're gonna have a really large deficit here. If you do that, it kind of, you don't see that
Right.
deficit so much.
And so I will follow up because I did have that highlighted. And obviously, you know that last year I did ask for a lot of detail on certain accounts because of the spending down in June. So I will go back to what we were talking to before about prepaying and buying. Instructional supplies indicate you're using those for instruction, and it's June. So the question is, what were the large, I mean, $1 million is a lot. So was it a large purchase of computers, laptops? And if so, if they had the money to do so and they're choosing to do so, normally that goes into their capital projects, and it's part of their technical capital report. So it kind of skews instructional supplies from year to year if all of a sudden you're putting it into instructional supplies instead of a capital item of it. So I guess I would be curious to get explanation on what was that $1 million? Not every dollar, line item, not every single thing, but what was the major component of that $1 million that was spent? And I do get concerned because we're buying instructional supplies in June. And we've talked about in the past that normally a budget is a fluid item. Look, it's a fluid item. Things happen during the year. Things have to change. However, normally when you're spending money in a budget year, it's for that budget year. And I did ask that in the past when I asked about it. Traditionally, that's the accounting principles, right? Is what you're buying is for the year that the budget is intended for. If you start to do too much of buying in for the next year all the time, we have talked about sand in the past, though. We've looked at that or whatever. But if we continue to do this, it kind of skews what their operating budget is. So, again, if the money was there, and clearly the money was there, we'd seen it every month in the budget that they were going to have $3 million or such left over. So clearly they knew the money was going to be there. They're utilizing it. Great for the kids. We're actually getting instructional supplies. But in this case, it's $1 million. So I would be curious, Mayor, if we could just find out a general overall of what that $1 million was that was spent in June. Would be appreciated. And the only other thing I will say, because of the new statute, which allows the Board of Ed to keep up to 2%, correct?
Mhm.
We were saying around that 1.5 million. I'm sorry, I'm skeptical, but their ending balance is 1.542 million. So yeah, it looks like you spent it down to the 1.5 because the 1.5 does not have to be requested to be moved. If it was anything more than that, I think they would have had to come to the Board of Finance. So unfortunately, I really wish if you have the funds, spend them during the year
Yeah.
for the students. When you do it in June, it looks disingenuous. So
Yeah, and forgive me if I appear to be, I'm scrolling through my phone because I do know that there are board minutes that will answer all of those, or a good number of those questions. And I should have thought to pull those up before this meeting. I do know that as they were nearing year end, I think it was the last week before year end, they were discussing the fact that they had a $3.2 million surplus. And their proposal for expending that surplus, recognizing that they could keep up to 2%, the 1.542 million, they then strategized how to spend the other $1.5 million. That $300,000 purchase of the software program. Can't remember what that software program was. Wasn't scheduling, was it? It was some kind of a,
I want to say it was like a dark trace, like behind the scenes kind of IT, you know, they
yeah,
block anything
cybersecurity
that-
kind of,
yeah.
yeah, cybersecurity kind of. So I know that there was a motion that they transfer surplus funds in one of those line items to cover that IT acquisition. I do know that they also moved $600,000 out of one of those educational operating line items to move into a maintenance line item. So facilities maintenance.
67,000.
No, it was 600,000.
This is 67.
Yeah, so it's somewhere else. It's in another line item because I do recall that the board, one of the board members reminded the rest of the board that, you know, that there's a very difference between maintenance of a building and capital improvements of the building. But there was $600,000 that was supposed to be moved from an operating line item into school maintenance or facilities maintenance. And the other small amounts were discussed, leaving $1.5 million to be transferred into the non-lapsing account.
Right, and I appreciate that. I do not see, because this zeroes out at the bottom, so I do not see 600,000 coming out of any account. The money's coming out of the health insurance fund because they knew they were going to have an overage. So 1.6 million, but the only large ones.
I have to look at yours because I'm just looking at mine on my screen.
So they say the large ones, the 263,000 got transferred to the licensing and warranty contract, which you just mentioned. And then the bulk of it went into instructional supplies. And then they had previously had that 250,000 for THS project expenses, I think was previously in there. So if they were moving, and perhaps maybe part of that 600,000 you're talking about is in the instructional supplies. It did not go into capital, though. It went into this line item. So if it was for capital purchases, perhaps they were, because I've seen in the past, they've ordered Chromebooks or whatever in large quantities. Again, that if you have the money and it's a good utilization, but I'd like to see it recorded in the correct place so
Yeah.
that.
So I think I found the minutes from.
Did you?
It was from June 10th.
June 10th. I knew it was the last couple of weeks of.
Line item budget transfers. Ms. Labby shared that the plan is to transfer a total of $3.2 million, 900,000 to instructional supplies, 125,546 to license renewals, 600,000 to district maintenance, and the 1.5 million to non-lapsing reserve. And most of the savings come from the healthcare related cost reductions.
I have 67,000 going into general maintenance.
No.
And it only brought it up, yeah, because it's 861 and so, yeah. Am I missing it? I don't see it.
What's up?
The,
District maintenance.
it said 600,000 to district maintenance, but I don't see 600,000 going to district. maintenance. And it does zero at the bottom, so I'm assuming, I didn't add it myself, so
Are we missing?
it could be off.
Yeah. And I would also, I also will remind the board that, thank you, Heather, for, she usually scouts out the Board of Education minutes, finds these reports so that she can provide them
Yeah,
to
I
the Board of
appreciate that.
Finance. I think Donna Labby contacted Heather Monday and reminded Heather that these are not yet approved.
Okay.
So there was a little
Okay.
back and forth about that.
The only other thing with these that as an accountant, I'm trying to roll forward May to June and I come off by like $100,000. So I don't know what the difference is between where May ended up and where June ended up. So, but that's a minor question. I'm still looking through the meeting minutes. I think that Erica was looking at.
So I know that, with a prior agenda item, and I agree, Wendy, you're right. I don't see district maintenance in this, and I'm wondering.
And it
if-
does zero out, so it did not go into district maintenance. 67,000 went in, not 600,000. So
Interesting.
I don't, again, this, as you just pointed out, this is not final and complete yet. So,
Except that those transfers were approved in June 10th.
Well, according to their minutes, yes.
yeah, I
Interesting.
apologize. I see 67,000 going into general maintenance. I don't see 600,000. So it
Yeah.
could be, is it a typo in their minutes? No?
No.
It was a lengthy discussion at the Board of Ed. I was watching it, and again, the cautionary note was just remember a difference between maintenance and capital improvements. Because it was being done on June 10th, one of the questions back to the facilities director was, can you really spend $600,000 in the next 2.5 weeks? And I think the board chair assured everybody that he had a list and it was, ready to roll. Yeah. We talked earlier about these capital reserve accounts coming back on a quarterly basis. I almost feel that it would be helpful. When Donna Labby is here, and even Donna Labby and Dean Pergola were here not so long ago, I think it's incredibly helpful for the Board of Finance to be able to pose those questions directly to the business director. So I'd like to suggest that there be an invitation to that director, to not only forward the performance reports, but maybe a brief summary as to what's in the report, and even appear to the Board of Finance, just to be able to answer those questions immediately.
And I
we
appreciate it. And I think because, just like any other department, as I told with the overtime, if you just had a 2-line narrative that explained, what happens, then we're not, we don't have to question. You've already given us the explanation. So I do appreciate that. Just a brief, if there's something askew in a line item, just give us a brief 2-sentence thing as to what happened that made it that way. But, I will say it by ending with speaking about June, I would just like a general overall short list of what made up that $1 million of current month
And to
transfer.
instructionals.
For that reason, I questioned it last year. Spending instructional
Mhm.
supplies in June just doesn't make sense because the students are out by the 15th or 17th. There's no way you're spending $1 million or using $1 million worth of things like that. And I think it goes to that point when we vote on the budget and we hold the line on people's departments. And clearly there's a lot of upsetness and frustration over us not giving additional money. Yet for me, this is only the second year that I've dealt with this, but for me to have departments such as the Board of Ed having such excess at the end of the year, but again, coming back saying, this is killing us financially, that's why my concern comes in. But yet you're spending it down in June, which means you probably had 3 million at the end of the year, not 200,000 or whatever. So that's all. It's just, it's an accountability and a transparency to the taxpayers for every department when things are a little out of whack. So that's what I'm looking at.
All right.
Yep, I agree. I think those are the biggest things that we'd like to understand. And then there's also the 2% non-lapsing reserve as well, if we can get those reports
Yeah.
for information.
Yes. Yeah. So short of, if we don't develop a policy, and request those quarterly reports, then you really are left to your own devices. Like, do we have to dig through their meeting minutes to find those, just as Erica did for us? non-lapsing account, I know that that also came up during the audit kickoff meeting, because at the time, in June, when the discussion was, we're going to move 600,000 into district maintenance, we were going to move funds into instructional supplies. That included moving the $1.5 million into a non-lapsing account, and they did establish a line item to receive those funds, and they moved those funds. And then the auditor reminded them that by statute, the determination of the surplus is really only after the audit is completed. So is it my understanding they then reversed that
Yes,
entry?
they did reverse that entry. And they will have to wait until after the audit's done because there might be changes and adjustments that need to be made. So they did have to reverse that. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just one last thing on the current year through 7/31, I've noticed now, and I do appreciate, I noticed now that they've created a new line item, which is a negative, which is employee health and life contributions. So they're showing their health insurance gross, and then within the same accounting, they're showing the employee health and life contributions as a negative out of it, which will make it net for that line item. I do appreciate that at least they're breaking it out now and we're seeing it, but is that appropriate accounting? Okay,
No.
just,
That, I mean, I'll let the CPA speak to that, but no.
Yeah.
I mean, you shouldn't have a negative in your expenditure.
Yeah,
Again,
you
it did
shouldn't
come up
budget
in
a
the audit.
negative in your expenditure line.
I just
item.
noticed that they
Yeah.
did. I appreciate that they at least split it out, so it shows it. as
It's like a contra account. So it's basically a
Yes,
contra
yep.
account for showing the employee reimbursement. So it's transparent,
Right.
I think that's what they're getting at for that.
I don't know if that number is gross either. I thought that they said they budgeted net.
Well, they have,
Yeah.
they have 13.5 for the health insurance budgeted. And then they have this 5210707, which is a negative 2.578 million budgeted.
Yeah, so is there a budget against the contra account?
I don't know what they're total.
Year to date, was there,
just
I think the
say-
premiums they've collected, oh, this was June.
No, this is July.
Yeah, I'm
So
looking
this
at
is for
July.
They budgeted for the year, they budgeted 13.565.
So
And
they,
then down here, they budgeted a negative 2.5.
yeah, so they do have
it's
a
still
budget
netting out.
against that contra account. So essentially they are budgeting net.
Right, yeah.
It's just in two
Yes.
different line items.
Okay.
Which is not how we have ever, well, I'm speaking to
And it's just odd to do it for one
line,
line,
Line would
one,
be up
Yeah.
in a whole entire budget.
It is.
which is, and for all of the members of the board that have been on the Board of Education, we always said gross to gross. Gross, you gross the expenses, you gross the revenue, everything is pretty transparent. The concern that Erica and Olivia and I discussed with this budgeting methodology also is those premiums don't break out to how much are those premiums against vision and dental, which is a self-insured account, and how much is against the medical, which is a fully insured account. So there's a lot about this that is concerning. We did bring it up in the audit. The auditors are aware of it. I recommended that we try to look at it now. Let's not wait until next year when they're doing the audit, because if there are any corrections or changes we want them to make, it's easier to make them early in the year than it would be at the end of the year.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on the BOE budget performance? And I'll reach out to see if we can get some answers to those questions. Or I'll find those minutes and share the transfer documents. All right, I'm going to call this motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, item 9, I will entertain a motion to consider business by department heads.
So moved.
Thank you. I heard Ms. Pesky and Ms. Traub. All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? And the only department heads we have here are the finance, who've been doing all the talking. You need to bring water with you to these meetings.
No, I usually do. I don't know
Yeah.
why I did it this time.
Anything from the comptroller?
Just that we're gearing up for the audit. Like I said, we're planning on soft closing tomorrow. Speaking of kind of when we're closing things up, we need to have the trial balance done by September 19th, which also means the Board of Ed also will have to have theirs completed by then as well. So, yeah, we're just gearing up for that, getting everything together, but things are going good and they're on pace. And I think that's,
Do they have a good sized team? I know past couple years.
the auditors. Yeah.
The auditors, yes.
Yeah, how many there was out there for prelim? I think 4. Really 5 if you count, us. Yeah, you're right. Like 5 or 6, but it's a pretty good team.
Did the board members receive the letter?
Mhm.
Okay, good. So if there's any questions or concerns you have, you could communicate directly to the auditing firm. I'll make sure that we get a copy to you as well. All right.
Mhm.
Anything from the budget manager?
I think I've said enough tonight. No, thank you for the final approval on the fiscal year 26 budget. Feels nice to get that done.
All right, city clerk, anything? You got nothing? Thank you. All right, we're going to move into item 10. I'll entertain a motion to consider business by mayor and members.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Pesky.
Second.
Second by Ms. Sanusito. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Starting with Deb, anything this evening?
With me? I think the only question that I have right now is what's happening with Yankee Peddler?
Oh.
Sorry.
No, that's
This may be
great.
another
I'll
hour.
second that.
Okay, good. All right.
Sorry.
So the line starts there.
Yeah, I probably should.
Yeah, so no, I am kind of pleased that you did ask the question. So in early May, we, the Torrington Development Corporation and the city submitted a request, a petition to the court authorizing the sale of the property to a preferred developer. We actually named the developer, selected him through a procurement process. Parker Benjamin is the preferred developer. By statute, we had to provide that request and petition to the defendant in the action. The judge scheduled the hearing. It was in late July, I'm going to say about July 20th. We had our first hearing scheduled, and about 24 hours before the hearing was scheduled, the defendant in the action filed a petition to terminate the receivership. They objected to the sale and they requested a termination of the receivership on the grounds that they had unconditional financing and they could proceed with the development themselves. So we had a hearing on August 6th, which was continued to August 12th. They had an opportunity to put on the record evidence purporting to have an unconditional commitment letter from the State Bank of Texas. We were able to put on evidence and testimony and question the unconditional status of that commitment letter because it was clearly conditioned on a lot of things. Contamination assessment work had to be done. There were appraisals that had to be done. I think there were 3 or 4 other conditions. So it was not an unconditional commitment. So after considerable testimony and evidence back and forth, the judge ruled from the bench, which we were grateful, surprised and grateful, and she denied their petition to terminate the receivership. We have now been continued to September 24th, where we will continue on the petition for authority to sell, getting our appraiser, our LEPs, licensed environmental professionals, that will put on the record what the cost for remediation will be, and anything else that we can to support our petition. So good news, but Not,
It's still continuing.
it is continuing. yes.
So I mean, I know this is a loaded question, but how long do you think that this developer's going to wait for this to go through?
So Parker Benjamin is, well aware when they submitted their proposal for redevelopment of the property. They were well aware that it was under receivership. They knew that there was a process. They're not unfamiliar with some legal proceedings.
Okay.
They haven't had to, it's not like they had to come up with a significant deposit. This was part of a process. If we win, they win. If we lose, they move on to their next project. So I would say with a high level of confidence, they're in it. They're waiting.
Good.
Yeah,
How
it is.
how many, did the team interview, any developer?
So the request for proposals on the property went out in early December. We had 5 responses to the request for proposal. One came late, so, we had to discount that. One of the proposals didn't meet our criteria. We were looking for somebody that was going to develop the property. That developer was proposing to demo the property and build something new. So that one was discounted. We interviewed 3, shortlisted 2 for a second interview, and then out of that second interview ended up with this preferred developer. It was a very good process. The net that was cast to get as many developers to respond to the RFP as possible. We utilized the State Department of State Department of Economic and Community Development. They have a web portal where developers frequently visit. We used a New England real estate distribution list. And Val Farrell from Good Earth Consulting had her own network of developers that she's worked with over the past 2 decades. So it was a pretty widely cast net. Out of the 5 people that did respond, 1 was out of state, 2 were local to the town of Torrington, and 2 were within the state of Connecticut. So it was, I think, a good process. And Parker Benjamin has great experience, some development that they've done in Unionville, in Winsted, where the Little Red Barn building is. In New London, they finished a number of housing units. So the other reason we did shortlist Parker Benjamin was because they were able to pivot between the demand for short-term housing or hotel, hospitality, hoteling, and long-term. So there's the capacity to pivot where the demand is. If the demand is for 60 hospitality rooms, they can provide that. If the demand is not for 60 and they find it's only for 30, they can turn the other 30 units into long-term leases.
At the same time?
Correct. Yes, a hybrid, yes.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, we thought so. We hope the judge thinks so.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty,
Encouraging.
yes, that she denied.
It was very thoughtful. You could see that she was paying great attention. And her decision, which is if you go to the judicial website and you pull up the history of this case, it's several pages. You could see that she put in a lot of thought and did a lot of study, considering she picked up this case after Judge Pickard retired.
That's
So-
how long we've been doing it.
Exactly, yes, yeah. I will share that the Torrington Development Corporation, we had a meeting yesterday, and we did talk about them preparing a presentation for the city council at the second meeting in September. so that they can present all of this. They can present the Parker Benjamin proposals. I'd like to extend that invitation to the Board of Finance members to be a part of that as well. So. I never want to say a joint meeting because that means somebody has to vote. Yeah. Or somebody else wants to lead the meeting. Yes. Yeah.
Send us
Um,
invitation.
Yeah.
That's still you.
Yeah. I once called for a joint meeting erroneously and I learned the other chair of the other board wanted to chair the meeting.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we could figure out a way so that the Board of Finance can ask questions. I think it would be helpful. We're good. All right. Anybody, any other questions?
No,
I-
that was my question.
Yes.
I do, and you just mentioned the word RFP, so I have to ask the question because I was not available to watch the Board of Ed special meeting. Was that RFP, did that have to do with the health insurance fund? And if so, was any action taken? Is this coming to the city or not? Was I right? It didn't say on there, and I just assumed because in the past, the Board of Ed did say that they were considering a forensic audit. And when I saw that, I assumed. So I'm making an assumption. I haven't seen it yet, but I also haven't heard anything on the.
The answer is yes and yes.
Ah.
Yes, they did. I think they worked with their attorney to compose the proposal or the scope of services. So the meeting that they had, and right, the way it was posted on the agenda was cryptic. I was able to get somebody else was able to get on the meeting and reported back to me. There was literally no discussion. It was a motion to move forward with the RFP with very little discussion, motion made, seconded, vote taken, and it was unanimous that they will proceed with a forensic audit of the internal service fund. And again, in the kickoff meeting with the auditors, we did share with the auditors, some of the questions they ask are, are there any large claims? We talked about the large claims against the internal service fund that resulted from, the members and insured rushing to get their medical treatment. And we did mention that there was a proposal for a forensic audit. Leslie Zoll from CLA cautioned Donna Labby on the use of the word forensic for the very
And
reasons.
Chris Anderson mentioned that.
And you have also said, forensic, leads you to believe that they're looking for something that was fraudulent, and Leslie did caution them. They said if you post it as a forensic audit, you're going to get very different responses than you would if you said, a complete audit or an audit. So I have not seen the RFP yet. The motion was made to proceed with the RFP. So we'll keep an eye on their webpage for bids. And they have been of late forwarding all of their requests for proposals to the city for posting on the city's website. So we should get eyeballs on that soon.
All right, so given that I have the information, I just want to express my sadness and my disappointment. I was really hoping that we could, now that the insurances have been split and the Board of Ed has their own, that we could get past all that and move on, accepting that both sides don't agree with how it's recorded. And from what we've had in our meetings, both sides didn't agree on who owed who what potentially. But I think at that point, I think we had determined that was water under the bridge. You've got your insurance now, we have ours. Let's go forward and amicable. So I'm disappointed. I'm also disappointed because that's taxpayer funds being used for something that, and I believe it was Councilman Cavanero said that something that probably could be resolved in a few meetings of the potential people involved. We could get together in a room. Here's all the documentation. And the stack of documents that was provided, Mayor, one other time regarding the health insurance fund and how every year the information is provided to the Board of Ed administrators. When you have meetings for the insurance, they are included. So I believe, it's just a belief. I can't speak to it. I believe there's transparency. When we do transfers out of the health insurance fund, it's voted on. We know where it's going, and it usually ends up being recorded as revenue for the next budget year on the city side and the Board of Ed side. So any transfers made out of that fund are voted on. They're never moved without authorization. So yeah, I will express disappointment. We have other things that are far more important. We talk about education and budgeting and how they need every dime. And these are funds that'll come out of a line item, for something on that. And I am curious. I think the biggest problem we've been having, and I don't think it's going to change with the forensic audit, is we just don't agree on the way it was recorded, gross revenue versus, whatever. And that, if there was overages in the health insurance fund, that it should go back to the employees as a discount or something like that. So, maybe there's some lessons that'll be learned out of this, but I know our internal service fund is audited, correct? So, I mean, the taxpayers have to know, it is already audited. It
Right.
doesn't go unnoticed. So yeah, I'm sad. I think we just need to get to a point where the city boards can all, we're never all going to agree. Let's face it. We're never all going to agree on everything. But I think there's a way to respectfully appreciate the work that every board member does on every board. And then try as leaders, I think the most important thing to understand is as a leader of the town, a leader of a board, leadership is all about getting people together. It's all about coming to those compromises. And so, I would like to see that kind of leadership. Okay, what can we do? What can we do at this point to fix things? Because this is just going to start out this whole fiscal year with another sore thumb.
Yeah,
I'm sad.
another cloud. Yeah. No, I agree with you. I share your disappointment, because, if it's a disagreement as to whether they owe us $8 or we owe them $4, those are, and add a few zeros after those. You're right. Those should have been really good discussions as opposed to, the deep dive into, a forensic audit. And I've learned to despise that term on so many levels. But what I am encouraged, and I do see some changes in behavior with the Board of Education, is an acknowledgement that they are a department of the city. There is a clear understanding of that. An acknowledgement that the procurement processes that are dictated in our charter apply to both the Board of Education and the city. I do see that, an acknowledgement of that. I do see, and I'm not sure if it's as a result of the change in the business director's office, but I do see that they are now sending their requests for proposals to the city so that we can post them on our website. Just earlier this week, we did receive the request for proposals for their roof work that has to happen at the middle school, which is also it's a saga. They came to us in February, and they didn't get the bid out before school let out. And their architect, in his email explaining the timeline, questioned, the advisability of doing roof work when kids are in the building. So, so a missed opportunity, roof work that should have happened, in June, July, and August of '25 is now being proposed to happen September, October, November. And also being phased. Phase 1 will happen in the fall into the winter, and phase 2 will happen next spring. So, yeah, some progress in, recognizing our respective roles. But I still think, that we can always be so much better if we're working together. So I appreciate those comments. All right, I know, put the new girl on the stand. Anything, do you have anything you want to say?
Are you still awake?
Not yet.
All right. All right, then there being no further business before the board, I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Inacito and Ms. Pesky. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're adjourned. And I know that we're adjourned, but did you send the email to the board members about October early voting? Okay, all right. Yeah, our Board of Finance meeting here falls on an evening of early voting, so
Hmm.
I know. We'll talk about what to do about that one.
Sure.
All right.